Hey, let's get another home team practice out of the way. Today we are going to talk a little bit about preparation strategy with our very awesome Moses Esterson from Berkeley. I won't waste any time. We'll just get straight into it.
All right, hey everyone. So this is the first in a sort of a three-part series on debate strategy about the sort of strategic choices you want to make when you're doing a debate round. This first lecture is about prep strategy. So specifically, what strategies you want to employ when you are preparing your case, when you're in the 15 minutes or 20 minutes before a debate round, where you are writing out your arguments, planning what you're going to say, planning how to refute your opponents, all of that good stuff. It's also how to think strategically in prep so that you have a case and you go into the round, making good decisions that are going to ultimately help you end up winning. But also a lot of these lessons are applicable to all levels of debate, not just prep. Okay, hold on. All right. So one important note, there's no one right way to prep. Different people use very different strategies, and the best way to find what works is to experiment. There's a lot of different ways to do prep time, to like manage your prep time, to write arguments, all of these different things. And different debaters do it in different ways, and different things work for different people. So the number one, this lecture is going to get into a lot of different strategical options. My number one piece of advice is to um, experiment with different ones, try different strategies, try combinations of different ones. That's what's going to help you end up getting the best result for you. All right. A few ground rules or recommendations for prep. So first of all, be blunt. It's important to be kind during prep, but it's also important to be blunt. If a strategy or idea isn't working, communicate that to your partner and move on. 15 minutes isn't enough time to explore every dead end. If you guys are looking at an argument and your partner thinks it's a good idea, but you don't, let them know that, right? Don't hurt their feelings, but it's important to be as efficient as possible with communication because otherwise you're just going to waste time. Second, be ready. If you're digitally flowing, have the Google Doc or the Sheets or wherever you're flowing ready and shared with your partner. Have your paper ready if you're in person. Be ready to start preparing as soon as the motions drop. You know, if you're in an in-person tournament, be in the drop room, have the document open, all of that good stuff. Um, Third is on checking your biases. We all have biases in political biases, cultural biases, social biases that could come across when we're thinking about arguments for motions. Sometimes you might consider a motion with only one perspective, and that could leave you really far behind in prep. So, sort of considering a variety of perspectives going into prep time is really important. And fourth, have a checklist. You get to pick what's on it, but it's helpful to have a good idea of what you want your prep time to look like. How much time you spend where, what questions you need to answer about the round and the motion, how you want to prepare your arguments, who's going to spend what time doing what. Is partner A going to write contentions while partner B prepares responses, etc.? Additionally, some sort of miscellaneous advice. It's good to devote some time to the start of prep to just talking and brainstorming, and have time at the end devoted to writing out arguments. I've seen a lot of debaters, not mostly novice debaters, but a lot of good varsity debaters too. They'll get a topic and immediately they'll just start writing down arguments. They'll just start spitballing anything they think could be a good argument for the round. Um, Generally, when you're starting out in prep, for the first few minutes, it's a really good idea to sort of just talk, brainstorm ideas, think about the round, think about how all the different pieces of the round are going to come together before you start writing down arguments that you think are going to help make your case. Also, this one is really big. Avoid writing out long form notes and try to use shorthand instead. That way you can spend more time brainstorming and less time writing. Again, you don't need to write out every word that you're going to say. Just write out, unless you're like writing, I don't know, some complex hook or something. Just generally write out the overall ideas you want, just enough that you can remember your idea and you can say it when you're giving your speech. You don't need to like write a full speech in 15 minutes. That's generally not possible. Um, Also, make sure both partners are heard. It's okay to have one person leading prep, but both partners should be giving input. In some partner dynamics, it ends up where one partner is really calling all the shots and the other one is kind of just following along. It's really important for your overall round to have both partners giving their input, giving their perspectives, giving their ideas, so you don't get tunnel visioned, and so that you like work well and cohesively as a team. And then also, when you practice prep, you can give yourself shortened time. So if you actually have 15 minutes for a tournament, you can practice prep with only 7 to 10 minutes. This will help you learn to be more efficient if you really, really have to like spare every last minute, right? And on that, prep is one of the easiest things to practice in debate because you don't need opponents to do it. You can just like sit down with your partner or even by yourself, pick a motion and spend 10 to 15 minutes preparing a case for it. And by doing that a lot, you can get really, really good at prep and at writing cases. Okay, I'm gonna get into a few different prep strategies that you may or may not want to employ when you're prepping, but you should certainly try them out because all of them have their merits. First is on silent prep. You can take 1 to 2 or maybe even more minutes just at the start of prep to silently think about the topic, brainstorm arguments, figure out what the clash is going to be, etc. There's a few reasons to do this. First of all, talking can be disruptive and throw off good ideas you have early in prep time. And additionally, uh, the first 1 or 2 minutes of prep are where the two of you really sort of get your understanding of the motion and how you want to debate it. So if each of you spend that time kind of quietly, separately thinking about the motion, brainstorming motions, one of you might catch something that the other misses, and you'll to hopefully when you combine your ideas, you'll have a more holistic sort of understanding of what the motion is asking and how you should go about tackling it. Um, Prep strategy two is asking questions. This is also sometimes called the inquisitorial method. But it's basically where instead of like I was talking about earlier, instead of entering into prep and immediately starting to write down arguments, sort of ask yourself questions about the topic, and that'll help guide like sort of more structured and more effective prep time. Um, you can ask yourself what clashes are likely to come up in this round. Not only what are our arguments going to be, what are their arguments going to be? You can say what arguments are going to be absolutely important or absolutely critical to winning. You can talk about burdens. What's our burden of proof? What do we need to prove to win this round? What do our opponents need to win to prove that round? How do we prevent them from proving that? How do we frame this in a sort of helpful way? Also talk about what's the comparative. If you have a motion where there's a counterfactual, I think we have a counterfactual lecture later down the line. But if there's a motion where you're debating what two different worlds about like two different worlds or a world where the plan passes and the world where it doesn't, think about what is the alternative to the world you're advocating for. What are other ways of trying to solve whatever problem you're talking about in the motion? Thinking about all those sort of different alternatives or different existing ideas within the space of the topic. Talk about what does this debate look like in the real world? Are there any examples? Have like the policies we're talking about been tried? Are there any personal anecdotes? Things like that. Um, this is the strategy that I always employ when I'm prepping. I always spend the first it can vary, usually 1 to 3 minutes of prep, just asking questions about what the important things are going to be in the round, and that way you don't get tunnel visioned and you're able to go into the round with again like this holistic view of what it's going to be like. Prep strategy three is also really important. It's determining a path to victory. So, um, at the end of the round, you're hoping to win. And in order to win, you need a plan, right? You can't just like throw out arguments and hope one of them sticks. I mean, you can do that. You might win. You probably won't. You want to have a very sort of cohesive and coherent strategy for how you can win the round. And in order to do this, you want to start this not you don't want to start this in a rebuttal speech. I know a lot of debaters who only start thinking about how to win the round in the rebuttal speech. You want to start this before the round even begins in prep, when you can sort of start to picture what the round is going to look like and how you can win it. So you want to consider how the debate might play out and try to devise a winning strategy. In other words, try to avoid just aimlessly generating arguments and instead try to think about how your arguments will fit into the debate and try to anticipate what arguments will be the most strategically important. This isn't just your arguments, this is your opponent's arguments as well. Prepping all of this out, having like an idea of what the round is going to look like and then how you're going to win within all of that is super, super important. Number four is big picture and small picture. So you want to look at both the small picture of your individual warrants, your arguments, your impacts, your framing, how sound those are, as well as sort of the big picture of the round. Are our arguments addressing important stakeholders? Are we strategically choosing arguments? Are these arguments that are actually going to carry through to the end of the round that we can win off of? Are we actually talking about things that are going to be significant in this round? This is another really important thing during prep, which is prioritization, right? You're going to have a lot of ideas, and a lot of them won't be so good, and that's okay. But it's really important to think about, okay, here's all the ideas I have for arguments. What from here is actually going to help me win this round? What from here is actually going to be useful? And number five is engaging strongly, and this one is also super duper important. While you're prepping, your opponents are as well. It's really a really good idea to try and anticipate the arguments that your opponents are going to run and figure out how you can beat it. Not just with your arguments, but also with your responses. This is another strategy I employ when I'm prepping. I'm a second speaker, which means I'm never giving the first speech. So actually, while my partner is writing our case, I um, write out the entire case for my opposition and then write responses to that case. And this way, my partner is prepared with our arguments, and I'm prepared with how to beat our opponents. Again, you don't have to focus all 15 minutes of prep on brainstorming your arguments. You can also think about their arguments, what arguments they're likely going to run, etc. Obviously, you can't perfectly predict what your opponents are going to run. So this definitely works better or worse depending on the situation. But there are a lot of motions where there's like generally a few pretty obvious arguments that the other side is going to make, and having responses prepared for those is really important to winning. Um, Another really key concept for prep strategy and debate strategy in general is this thing called round vision. You'll probably hear this a lot in your time doing debate. But round vision is generally just how the debate is going to play out and what themes are going to be important by the end of the round. It's your ability to see clearly um, what the debate is really about, what's really important in the debate, what's going to happen in the debate. Um, I see a lot of debaters lose rounds because they get lost in sort of all of the different intricacies and complexities of all of the different arguments floating around, and they don't actually see the big picture. They don't actually see what's going to win them the round, what's going to help them succeed. And that can be really bad. Yeah. So, one way to do this is to visualize clash. Clash is just in debate how we talk about how different points interact with each other, where we have different arguments that are clashing with each other, that are contradicting each other between the two sides. And because ultimately this team that wins those clashes are going to be the team that wins those points and likely wins the round. So in prep, you want to imagine what the rebuttal speeches at the end of the round are going to focus on, what they're going to collapse on, what main ideas they are going to decide the winner of the round. I know that can seem kind of daunting if you're sort of in prep and you're already thinking about what the very last speech of the round that hasn't even happened yet is going to be about. But thinking about, what your strategies are and what your opponent's strategies are going to be, and sort of predicting what rebuttal speeches are going to look like is super important for round vision, for having a sort of holistic understanding of the round that's going to help you be a lot more successful throughout it. Additionally, on intuition, try to develop an instinct for where the clash will end up going. How will they respond to arguments you make? How are you going to respond to arguments that they make? What are all these different mini clashes on different points going to look like? Because if you can anticipate that, if you can make an argument and you already know what your opponents are going to say to try and refute it, you can make your argument that much stronger, and you can make your entire case more ready for the scrutiny that your opponents will put on it. This helps you build your arguments in a more strategic way so that they can continue to stand throughout the round. Okay, that is it for our lecture for now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.